Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another Monday LinkedIn Live. We are back with another amazing guest. Guys, if you're watching this on LinkedIn, then do it here. But we are also streaming to YouTube. So if you want to see the replay, or if you want to check out some of our past replays, it's much easier to do it on YouTube versus going through my news feed. And if you're there, subscribe, like, comment there as well. Without me going into too much random rambling, Robert, welcome to the show. And I would love to ask you if you can introduce yourself a little bit to the audience.
To be here. Thank you for inviting me to come onto your podcast so I could share with you some things that are very important to me that I think of value to your audience. And hello to your audience. I hope everyone out there is doing well and that you're safe from this terrible pandemic. My name is Dr. Robert Watts. A brief sketch of my background would include a time in the National Football League as a football player with the Oakland Raiders and New Orleans Saints as a linebacker. I attended Boston College on athletic scholarship. And prior to that, I attended the Vermont Academy, which I'm very proud of, in Saxons River, Vermont, which was a preparatory school for boys at the time. It's co-ed now. I have a doctorate degree in organizational psychology, and I've been a practitioner for over 25 years in that field. I've written 4 books, one of them which is called People Are Never the Problem. The other is Swim Sideways, navigating through the tough times or the tough waters of occurrence of work and business. And I use those 2 books sort of as the pillars to all of my work, whether it be as a consultant, trainer, or coach in organizations, or working one-on-one with folks to work through their personal life problems. I am currently preparing to launch SOIG, Show, Observe, Interact, and Grow, which is a SaaS platform that automates leadership and management in organizations, which is the title of the talk that Mia and I are going to have today.
Yes. And can you just let us know a little bit more about the SOIG? So I've never heard of that before until I met you. So it might seem a little bit cryptic to the audience. So if we can break it apart and if you can tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, as I mentioned, SOIG is a software as another service. So it's a mobile accessible application that automates leadership and management in organizations. And what that means is that it provides leadership and management in organizations a way to take their mission, vision, and values off the wall and put them to work to shape healthy culture and growth in their organizations. It filters down to the people that do the work in the organizations by allowing them to have a partner in the way of the software to remind them of functions, to provide them with engagement with their managers and with each other, do strategic integration of organizational culture. And in that way, we mean vision, mission, and values and goals are then shared across the whole organization in the form of smart links that then help to facilitate communication and communication part of the platform. And it also provides a framework for developing and populating strategic plans that are diffused throughout the organization in the form of many strategic plans for departments and individuals so that you can consistently be aligned and empowered with tracking performance over time, both on a macro and micro level in the organization.
Okay, well, let's go back to beginning. So as a coach, when I do any due diligence in a company that hires me, the first thing that I check is the foundations. And for me, foundations are vision, mission, core values, company culture, brand identity. So those are kind of like core foundations. And what I see is that most companies don't have that clearly written down. They might have something in their head, or maybe even something that was more like a copy paste written down. But they most of often haven't spent much time on really figuring those foundations down. Now, that's the first problem. The second problem that I see is even companies that have that written down, it's mostly piece of paper or a Word document or a Google Doc. It's not something that they constantly remind themselves and people in the organization about, and they don't talk often about it. So let's go way back to why those things are so important as a foundation for any organization, for any company, whether it's a small six-figure business or whether it's a big corporate thing, Fortune 500. Why is it so important to have those foundations written down and then living them?
Well, the first part is that, vision, mission, and values are something that every human being operates by, whether they be implicit or explicitly stated. We're all functioning that way as individuals. We all come from organizations, and the first organizations we come from are our family groups, and they have vision, mission, and values. Some families are so clear and so organized and intentional that they actually will identify those things and communicate them to the family members. But we all come to the workplace with that sort of innate and ingrained orientation. And so when we don't have that structured in an organization in an explicit way, then people are going to function that way implicitly. And they're going to create their own direction and their own purpose. And so it's important for an organization to be able to document that and then be able to, they're able to coalesce people around a common vision, a common purpose, which is your mission statement, and your common beliefs, which are your core values. We go a step further and we ask organizations to identify their central role in their industry so that organizations can then empower people with a sense of identity and pride around how they're different than other folks or other organizations in their space. So we take that, and like you mentioned, we take that off a piece of paper and we take it off the wall in terms of plaques and bulletins or however people are using it as archival data in their organizations. And we actually take it and integrate it into our software program so that it then becomes a living part of each person's work functions during the day. And it's embedded in the strategic plan so that organizations never lose contact with it, with their particular direction, mission, and beliefs.
Well, one thing that I really like what you said, and I say this very often to my clients, is all those things will be created. Company culture will be created, vision, mission, all of that. Now, you can either drive that creation and make it something that you stand by, that you believe in, and that will propel your company forward. Or if you just let it create on its own, there's a big chance that you might not like it. So that was really nice when you said it, that those things get created. It's just not sometimes what we like because we weren't actively creating that. Now, Robert, I want to ask you if you can go a little bit deeper in, what is your software? How does that integrate with everything else? How does that software solution remind us, and how does it play such a big role in constantly living those foundational things?
Well, and the key is how we integrate the culture into each person's work functions. And then people have an understanding of what their purpose is in the organization and how their efforts tie to the bottom line, number one. Number two, in tandem with that, they understand how they're shaping the culture. I like your idea of creating culture, but we use a language of shaping because every action, every thought, every interaction that we have in the organizational life place, I call life place, is a step towards shaping the culture because it becomes iterative. And once that happens, then we're all cognizant of our participation in that shaping process. And then we're all able to track it. we're all able to then get rewarded accordingly or get redirected so that we can get in lockstep with it again, because none of us are perfect. So even though we may have these documents and these tools, we get off track. So in our particular methodology, we call them behavioral compasses, those behaviors and attitudes that we articulate that will allow people to understand how to live out the values. When we are off track or come offline, then those behavioral compasses allow us to get redirected and to get reattached. And so what does that look like? When you have a platform, we can do that digitally. We can remind people through what we call our in the now messaging. People can then create messages to talk about how they're aligned or how they're disaligned, how they might need help, or how they have used the values to enhance their work on a day-to-day basis, or their relationships with internal stakeholders or external stakeholders.
Okay, but Robert, how does your software work? Is it self-platform? Does it sit on top of other platforms? Like, what is, if you could just explain it a little bit, like, do I have to log in, or does it work in combination with our ERP system, or, like, just how does the whole thing work? And how do leaders use it on one hand, and how do employees use it on the other hand?
Well, those are a number of questions. The first one I'll take, which is the last one, which is how do leaders use it? Well, when you sign into the platform, you're usually going to be initially the leader, because the leader comes to the administration dashboard and starts populating their strategic plan and building the departments and the roles. And for the organization is what we call smart, functional, interactive chart, org chart. And so once that's built, then they can start hiring folks or assigning roles to people, which those people can then open up and click on their goals and see who they're sharing goals with, no matter where people are located in the organization geographically. The other part of that question is how does the platform operate? Well, we have to issue you a HTTP address, and so then you log into the platform. It does have a open source backend, so if you do have licensed software, then you can tie your software to our software so they can interact.
Oh, okay. So if I can either integrate that or use it separately. So yeah. How does that interaction? Let's say I just want to use your platform on its own. So you explained the first part. So let's say I'm the CEO, the owner. So I log in and I set up the backbone, or somebody, my assistant does it for me. And then we start inviting our employees, our coworkers into the whole thing. Now, how does that interaction happens going forward? Like, what are some of the things that people can do or should do within your software?
Well, it's really simple. Once you have subscribed to the software and you start sharing it in your organization, people will then pick their own usernames and passwords. And it's that simple. People are now in the platform. Once they're in the platform, then they would then be able to access what we call our smart chart, and they can go and see their job maps, their portion of the strategic plan, and anybody else's that's in the organization smart chart, and they can start the process of communicating, and they can see what their vision, what their particular work functions are, and their duties and responsibilities, and start carrying those out.
So it also behaves as a little bit of project management tool as well, or I'm misunderstanding? So
no, you're correct. The portion that we've just discussed is what we call the user job maps, and that's just your think of it as a job description on steroids, okay? Because you can then you can issue that to the HR department or whoever's responsible for hiring or recruiting, and we can convert that for the client into a tool that helps you to recruit and hire and onboard folks. So So in that respect, it can be used that way. But we also have what we call project management component and a value chain messaging component. So the project management component allows the organization to take those job maps and convert them into project maps. And you would then have an overall project view to track performance, budget, goals, performance indicator, progression. And you can also do all the things you would normally do, like communicate with other folks about the project through distal communication, through our communication platform. The VC MC tree, which is our value chain messaging function, takes the supply chain and collapse it. So then you can bring in your customers, your vendors, and your suppliers, and give them job maps that have been designed for that customer. And you can then assign people in your organization to work with that cohort.
Oh, okay. So it's actually a much bigger platform than what I thought initially. So who is this platform most suitable for? Like what size of the company is that perfect size to start using the platform?
Oh, I love that question because over 30 years, my job has always been to make myself astute in as many areas as I could so that I could be of service across all industries. Well, for the most part, I've been successful in that regard. And so then that transferred over to the platform. This software is non-industry specific. And if you know about SaaS, a lot of the SaaS programs are really industry organized to respond to needs in certain industries. This particular platform is non-industry specific. So it doesn't matter what your nature of your business is. The platform has value and provides solutions for the types of issues that may cause pain in organizations. I don't know too many organizations that don't experience pain around or appraising people's performance. It's a major issue that I get hired to come in to help consult around, or being able to identify people in the organization that are making contributions that are more introverted, who don't really speak up, or in cultures where revenue drivers get most of the attention and get most of the credit, where support teams don't necessarily get that credit because a lot of the things that they do are not able to be tracked, or they don't have the mechanisms to track that performance and those results. Sometimes it's because the performance is on the soft side, not on the hard side. It's not metrically driven. And so what we do in the software is we show you how to take soft phenomena and harden it so that you can track it, and so that you can create what we call internal level playing field, so that people in that organization who sometimes are invisible but bring a lot of value and talent can be recognized, and their contribution can be trapped in the form of quantitative and qualitative discussion. They can participate in meetings. They can sit back and learn from people in meetings that are taking place digitally, or our platform allows for a video conferencing so that people can even still have that video engagement. So it's a very robust system, and I wrote it so that organizations can be more healthy. Because we find that when reciprocity doesn't exist in organizations or any population of people, then we find certain things that are predictable, like turnover, people being disgruntled, poor efficiency, gaps in people feeling like they are included in an organization, that they're fulfilling their purpose as an individual on this planet. And so the software is built to help address those real deep issues that often don't get accounted for until they become a problem in organizations. And so then they hire consultants to come in and they try to deal with what they call people problems. But we've identified it as a systemic system problem, not just a human being problem, but human beings don't necessarily build systems to accommodate the human need or the human condition.
Robert, one thing that you said is that often in a company we have roles that we can't very directly linked to revenue generating activities. They are needed, like let's say it's probably something in the back office, which usually you can't say, oh, this created so much revenue, and then those people are left behind when promotions are handed and awards and bonuses and stuff like that. But can you give us one or two examples, like real life examples of a role or something that wasn't quantifiable, and how you guys turned it around and made it as quantifiable as possible so that it could be linked more directly to the revenue that's being created?
Well, I had an experience in a securities firm, and there was a particular individual in there, a woman that worked in the firm, who had been there longer than anybody else. And so, but the role never changed. She was always considered to be the administrative assistant to people. But people would come and go all the time. They had a lot of turnover in this particular organization. And so all the attention was on the salespeople and the people who traded business. And so this person would often get, at the banquets and stuff, she would get, flowers or candy or, small financial bonus, monetary bonus of some type. But no one was recognizing the talent and the real true contribution to the bottom line. And so I started working with that individual, and I used my methodology to bring it to the management's attention. And we started to recognize through our methodology how to leverage this talent and to give this person a more meaningful role in the organization, so that the impact could be felt and recognized across the organization. And so that this person could get the proper recognition they deserve, but moreover, so that the organization can get more value from that contribution, because now you can start tailoring intentionality around it. How are we going to use it strategically? So one of the things that this person was doing was, since there was a gap in training and coaching in this organization, I would probably say more the coaching. People would go off to get training, but when they came back, there was nobody there to help them to integrate things. So when they would come back from sales training or orientations or whatever, then they would be kind of left on their own to sink or swim. And this particular person would always pull them aside and say, let me show you how to do this. Let me teach you how to fill out this form. Let me show you how to deal with this particular issue with the home office, or whatever the case might be. That was the go-to person, right? But no one put a value on it at the administrative level, at the C-suite level. It was just, she's a nice lady and she's really helpful, right? But if you take her out of the equation, then you would see a significant dip in performance of those people who are being onboarded in the beginning. Right. So she was the person that helped them hit the ground and run. Right.
I mean, she was helping with one of the hardest things. I mean, knowledge transfer, that's easy, the training part. I mean, you can create a workshop, have people there for 2-3 hours, you give them some theory and off you go. That's the knowledge transfer. But where people really either fail or succeed is the implementation level that happens next. And from what you're saying, this lady was helping everybody implement. She was motivating them, cheering them up, showing them things. So yeah, she was like a really valuable person, because that is the hardest part, is to implement. Well, Robert, I want to ask you another question. I mean, we're slowly getting to the 30-minute mark, so I still have a few questions for you.
Pretty quick.
Yeah, time flies when you're having a lovely time. But Robert, okay, so now you gave us an example about one person, but if you look at maybe some of your other clients, and if we go a little bit more to the top level stuff, could you, without naming any names, of course, or if you want to, please do so, give us maybe an before and after picture of an organization, before they started working with you and your software, and then after, what was the transformation that happened in between?
Well, I'm not going to use any names because I don't give client names out, right? That I don't do that way, at least in this context. But I worked with an organization, a very large institution that was in a bit of chaos, and it had real problems at the executive level, and that is that no one really understood what their relationships with each other were. And who was truly in control. Though people had titles, those who are experienced know that a title doesn't make you always the leader, right? You may be prescribed, yes. You may be prescribed that title, but leadership is earned in an organization. So when I was brought in, what I was experiencing was sort of a octopus that was running in different directions. Okay, so one tentacle was going one way, another tentacle was going another way, and so that was largely because they didn't have a common sense of what the mission was or what the vision was. They didn't even have any goals written down. They were an organization that was successful because they had great product that had been there long before any of those leaders had even arrived. So there was a market demand for what they did, but they were wasting a lot of resources. And it was a very unhealthy work environment because people didn't have anybody they could go to talk to about things, or no one really understood what their jobs were even. It was purely a reactionary environment. So simple things like what we're talking about, creating a foundation and a framework to start shaping a healthy culture became the first thing I needed to do with these people. And it was painful because the leadership couldn't agree on what that direction was or what their real purpose was. Everybody had a different opinion. So when I rolled out the methodology to them, my first thought was, how am I going to get these people on the same page, right? So the first thing that came to mind for me was, hey, it all starts with culture. No matter where you are, what you're doing, you got to have a common sense of what the culture is. So we spent 6 months, believe it or not, trying to get agreement on what the vision, mission, and values were. And when we finally got that, just that activity in itself became a team building activity that created synergy for that senior team. And then it became a lot easier then to say, okay, let's talk about the functions in the organization, because none of that was written down, right? So we were able to then take the vision, mission, and values and slowly integrate it the way we do on the platform, right? Because at that time, I was operating only with the methodology that drives the platform. And so that told me the platform would be a phenomenal platform because I was able to do that using a Word document at the time. It was purely the methodology, right? And so later on, when I was able to then create the technology, then it became even a lot easier to do that with groups. But I'm giving you an example of the hardest experience I had, and I had phenomenal success with just getting people to buy into the methodology.
I absolutely understand you on that one. I see it when I work with my clients. The bigger the organization, the harder it is to put those things in place because the organization was running without them for so long.
Yes.
So the easiest thing is when you start the company to already start with those foundational pieces. And then, of course, you build upon them as you grow. But that's a whole different story because yes, you're already starting with the right thing. But whenever I have to go in a company that already exists for many years and they have, I don't know, 50 or 100 or a few hundred employees, because I mostly deal with, what you would probably characterize as small to medium-sized businesses. Mm-hmm. Very rarely I work with real corporations. But the more people are there, the longer they have been there, the harder it is because you're coming in, you're changing, you need to get the buy-in from everybody. Yes. And sometimes they have to part ways with somebody as well. And so, it's a very hard thing when you do it. So this might be, let's say, a wake-up call for our viewers. If you don't have those foundations yet in place, the sooner you do them, the easier it will be, because the longer you go without that, and at some point you will just need to have them if you want a healthy, long-term, sustainable business. It just doesn't work without strong foundations.
Yes.
If you don't put the foundations in place, your house is basically a house of cards. Any little wind or anything that comes that way will just
Yes.
break it apart.
Yes. May I add one thing to that? With the platform, you are fortunate because what you just said is absolutely true. But what is also absolutely true is that change is inevitable and it's constant. And so we always must be developing ourselves, right? And we almost always must be thinking about maintenance of the culture. We don't think of culture as needing maintenance, right? Our car needs maintenance, our house needs maintenance, our bodies need maintenance, but we don't think of the culture of an organization needing maintenance. Well, it needs maintenance. It needs somebody to care for it, right? So our software provides a learning center where you can continually develop your knowledge, your ability to maintain your organizational culture and your organizational capacity. We also archive all interactions. Everything that transpires in the platform is archived. So we teach through the methodology how to use that data, that big data, to then reshape job maps, reshape strategic plans, to use for coaching and to developing people, for taking a real microscopic look at what's going on in the culture and how it correlates to performance, and then taking the proper strategic action. So one thing is to implement things, but then what happens with the maintenance? What happens to the true management of not just the technical side, but the culture? Who's caring for the culture? And how?
Absolutely.
What tools do they have to do that?
Absolutely. And I mean, a company is a living, breathing organism.
Yes.
And the world is moving at such a fast pace. So much is happening in the world that influences our organization as well. I mean, even if we look at ourselves, our why changes, our purpose changes.
Absolutely.
As we grow older, as we go through many failures and stuff like that, as we experience pain and pleasure and so on, we change. Our companies change. And one thing when I'm working with my clients is to get them to every quarter go through the foundational stuff, revisit it, see if it needs a little bit of tweaking, changing, this, that. Sometimes you make some big changes when there are some big shifts, like, I don't know, Corona changed a lot in many organizations. And sometimes you just do a little tweak. And sometimes all you do is you say, oh, we are still very much aligned with our foundation, and that's okay as well.
Yes.
But you have to look at it at not just we put it in place once and now set it and forget it. You need to maintain it. You need to work with it. It's a permanent beta thing. I call it permanent beta.
Yes. Absolutely.
Well, Robert, we have a few of your fans in the audience, and they're cheering and saying. So, for example, we have Adrian.
Bird.
Yes.
We went together.
And we have Khalid. Well, Robert, one thing that I always do when we come to the end of the interview is I call it the golden nugget of wisdom question. It's really just, this is more like a conversation. We don't have questions written down, and I just give my guests the opportunity. If I've forgotten to ask a question that you feel would be valuable for the audience to know, I call it the golden nugget of wisdom for the end. And then the second question will be, what's the best way for people to find out about your software? What's the best way for them to connect with you? Is it go to website? Is it connect on LinkedIn? So kind of like, what's the best way to reach out to you? But let's start with the golden nugget of wisdom.
Okay. Well, my first thought is, like I said in the beginning, I refer to the things that I've written about. And so people are never the problem. As I said, that is the foundation of everything I do. The software is that's the foundation of this software. We get into blaming each other and really, suppressing each other's energy when we blame. And so in organizations and any systems, that just causes it to go off track and to not perform at the highest level it can perform. You cannot reach peak performance when we treat the people who perform like they're problems. So I encourage everybody listening, to remember that people are not the problem. People have problems, and we're the best resource for helping each other with our problems, no matter what form they come in. So please understand that. And second, just know that, as I mentioned in that same book, you are the course, but are you teaching it? And so as an organization, if you're going to bring people into your organization, know what your course is. What's your vision, mission, and values and goals? How are you going to impart that? How are you going to teach that to the people you're bringing on board? Because quite frankly, that's what you owe them. These people are giving 8 hours to 12 hours a day to you as your organization for it to grow and to prosper and to be of value to you and your communities. So what kind of commitment are you making from the beginning with the people you're hiring? And that commitment has to start with understanding why you've brought them there, what's in it for you, and what's in it for them. And what's in it for them should be your ability to set a clear direction, understand what the purpose is, how you're going to fulfill that purpose, and then what you believe about yourself and are able to be committed to and aligned to. So those are my pieces. Those are my two nuggets for listeners. Those are critical. And those are the things I have found in my career to be the biggest gaps in organizations. How we treat and understand who people are and our relationship with them, and how clear we are about our own course. If you don't teach it, people can't pass it. I was a university professor for many years, and I always started my semester off by sharing with students that philosophy, that they needed to teach me their course so I could shape my course around their course, because they're my customers.
Absolutely.
The second part of that is how to get in touch with me. Well, real simple. You can go to our corporate website, wattsassociates.org, or you can go to the software platform site, which there is a link between the two sites. Either one, you can get to the other site. But the other one is SOIG, SOIG .web. SOIGweb.com. Let me correct myself. SOIGweb.com.
Okay. Perfect. And probably, you probably don't mind if people connect with you on LinkedIn, send you a message on LinkedIn as well. So I guess that's another way. And you are tagged in this interview, so they can just click on that. But yeah, they can also go to those two websites. I mean, Robert, if you don't mind, maybe today, later today or tomorrow, you can come back to this interview and just put in the comment, the link to the software, and so people can just click on that, go to your website, if you wish to do so. But yeah, you said it yourself. It's not that hard to type it in. So yeah. Well, Robert, this was an absolutely lovely interview. We are already 40 minutes in, so it's time for us to stop this interview, and potentially do another one in the near future. So thank you so much for being my guest. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. I find it really, really valuable. We're talking about the foundations, and it's a really, really important topic, and I absolutely love what you do and what you're sharing. So Robert, I wish you nothing but all the best on your journey, and I really do hope that we'll speak soon again.
All right, thank you very much, and thank you to your audience. Have a blessed day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, everybody. So yeah, this was Dr. Robert. Really important topics, something that I'm very deeply passionate about, laying down strong foundations. I'm always talking about that when I work with clients, when I'm creating content. Foundations. It really is so important. So even if you joined right now, go back, listen to the interview once again, make some notes. Robert shared amazing value through the interview. And it was really a huge pleasure to have him as a guest. Connect with him, visit the website. It's truly an amazing thing what he's talking about. Of course, next Monday, new interview, new guest. We'll have fun again. And yeah, with all of that, I just wish everybody happy Monday. I hope you guys are all safe and well and healthy throughout this whole craziness going on around the world, and plenty of different craziness going on. So I wish you all happy Monday, great start of the week, all the best during the week, and then I'll see you again next Monday. Bye.